we look at the marketing tech stack, right? We have a few questions around how do you go about building the right tech stack, and those are the questions that we'll be discussing at this point. I want to start with actually asking one of the challenges that a lot of marketing folks have when they go about thinking what's the right stack, which is when we approach this problem of picking tools, do we look at immediate challenges? Do we look at, say, this is one problem that I face at this point and I should go for a tool? Or do we look at building a vision, a broader vision of the organization that broadly these are the 10, these are the 7, these are the 6 tools I want to use, I want to build, I want to utilize in terms of my challenges that I'm trying to solve. So is it driven by the immediate challenge, or is it driven by a vision of the organization when you're trying to build a tech stack? So that's my first question, and anybody can join in and start with probably sharing their opinions on this.
So honestly, I feel it is a vision where you start with, and at what stage in your journey you are at, you need to start thinking how is it aligning with the vision. Right? Most of the organization, you will start with the vision. I should have a customer-centricity, customer should love. By the way, I should also have a revenue and I should have a users as well. So when the most critical aspect that user come into the play, there is an underlining behavior to it, which is a repeat rate, as in how many customers are coming back and again. If it is a subscription model, how many people are renewing. If it is an e-commerce, how many people are repeating. Right? So to build that kind of synergy and linking with the vision, Martech as a solution comes into the play, right? And I mean, if you are a startup, it's a year one, probably you can manage everything in a human way, right? You can deploy resources, they can manage, they can talk, they can figure out how many people are repeating, and you can keep engaging with that approach. However, the moment you think the scale, and if your vision is really, really upwards, that's where the Martech comes into play, and that's where you start evaluating the tool, what you need to get into it. That's what has happened with us, and that's how we have also evolved. And at that stage, the most crucial aspect for us is which tool and why this tool, right? And for that, again, it goes back to the vision and also linking back to my organization strength area, right? If it is a Martech tool, the Martech starts with the marketing aspect of it, which means it is going to get used by marketeers and not by the technology folks. And how do you ensure that marketing folks are very, very comfortable, adaptable to this kind of tool and how they can build onto it? So that's how each and every organization need to find out right stage, what kind of use cases, who's going to run those tools, and what time of the journey they will have to do that. Yeah.
Got it. I mean, I think from what I gathered, you're saying that it's very specific to an organization. There are a lot of factors at play here, be it the stage of the organization, who's going to use it, and multiple other factors. Manav, do you have a take on this?
I mean, I think what Inder has captured is pretty much the gist of it, right? It's not a unidimensional thing, right? There is no single thing at play. It is largely the function of what kind of business you are running, what stage it is at, what kind of teams do you have, what kind of creative velocity do you need, whether you need a real-time engine or not, or whether you need something which is much more enduring in nature because your sales cycles are longer, etc., right? And basically, if you look back, the Martech's job is to enable you to achieve your organization's goal, your P&L goals, while keeping the customer experience at the epitome of it, right? And if you look at it from that lens, you realize that it is not only an investment in tech, it is the investment in ops, investment in capital, investment in building those experiences that are going to impact your P&L, right? And I think the earlier, the panel of lovely ladies were, trying to emphasize on the same fact that how experience at scale really drives the organization's P&L, right? And I think Martech plays a very, very important role there.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing that thought. Samir, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah. So Inder and Manav shared their experiences, and Manav spoke about customer experience. Inder spoke about the stage that the organization is at and what are your current priorities. Having done this for Make My Trip, Shop Clues, and now Max Life, in retrospect, what I feel is that it's not about getting the right tool. Getting your Martech right is actually about getting your customer and data strategy right and marrying it to your enterprise architecture and then going after the right tool. Often what we try to do as marketers is, we're short-sighted and we see, okay, let me just get the right tool and that will solve everything for me. That's one thing that I can say in retrospect. And the second is, if you can take that time to get decision makers in the organization together and set your expectation right, that this is going to be a journey. We will walk the path from point A to point B. It will take 6 months to achieve X, another year to achieve Y. Then I think you have that the luxury of time and the right expectation setting to do it right the first time and not iterate over and over again.
Got it. Karan, your take.
So most of the things have already been said, but if I have to say about my experience, so it's never comes at moon day when I think that now it's right time to have a Martech. Yeah, growth, as Inderpreet said, a growth stage is important. But when a company start from day zero, first 2 people sit, then some scale achieve, then we need to automate few things to optimize. We can't, in my 100th day, I can't infuse a lot of money to buy a tool. But then I have to start one day, let's have first acquisition tool, bring that on board. Then if I'll achieve some scale, then I'll bring engagement tool, because first customer will come in, then I have to engage them and then I have to retain them.
Right.
One problem at a time and start. This is journey basically. Martech stack is journey in which I have to infuse few Martech tools. So I'll start with one. We have a little vision of a year and 2 that where I will be, and then keep on adding tools.
Got it. So I think it's a factor of the organization. And I think in that case, let's be more specific to the 4 organizations that we have right now to discuss about. Let's talk about, say, if I go more specific in terms of Martech and if I talk about engagement stack, right? Can we get into examples of, say, how HT evaluated and say picked an engagement stack, or say how say Max would do that, or say what are the key parameters for your organization? And I feel that there are, if we talk about these four organizations, there'll be enough pointers for the audience to kind of take back with them. Yeah.
So very simple, as I said, there were a couple of pointers when we went out looking out. We are into the news industry, right? While we do have offerings which are deep, insightful analysis, which are behind paywall and it is for premium customers. The most important aspect was the throughput rate, right? If there is a breaking news happening today, it needs to reach right away within few milliseconds. And that was the starting part. Second was, if you have to achieve that speed of millisecond, of course, your system has to be there, but your front end also has to support that how easy is this to write and just trigger it in that fashion. So that was the other parameter for us. And the other most crucial aspect for us was we are generating huge amount of content daily basis. Right. And once you get into the space of personalization, and if customer have a habit of reading particular type of content on your platform, how do you achieve personalization in a much swift and in a better and a faster way? And that was the most crucial aspect when we were deciding a tool. So how this tool is able to personalize the things for us, how the creativity layer can be added to it, and how the customer can respond quickly to that. So I think these were the 3 aspects. The third aspect is more customer-centricity. First 2 are primarily, the major aspect is a link to the speed and the execution and the UI part of it. So those are primarily the 3 which we decided to go for.
Understood.
Yeah.
Anav,
if I were to really dip into my experience, right? When I was launching Ask Me, we were having about more than 3 million SKUs live, right? So the ability or the scale that we were expecting from a tech stack to bring on the board was, imagine that if you're taking your 3 million SKUs live in your PLA or a EPA feed, right? Imagine the kind of cart abandonment or remarketing or the retargeting issues, right? So, which means that when you step back, you're looking at a very mature stack that allows you to do TCO real time, allows you to populate the feeds, the pricing, etc., etc. When I was launching Alt, right, the entire nature of the problem was very, very different, right? Because you're looking at, for the very first time in the history of the country, being launched a SVOD app where you want people to pay for content. That has never happened in the country, right? But then the nature of the consumption is such that it was a lot more to do with retaining the customer, giving him back the recommended shows and seeing how you got to keep him engaged, and especially when you don't have a deep library like Amazon and Netflix of the world have. Today, when we are launching India's next best electric scooter, right? The entire notion that how do you create a D2C play, right? And do realize that these categories are very immersive in nature, where there is a lot of research and analysis that goes from a consumer standpoint, and which is why when you look at the funnel, it is a flip funnel if you compare it with ICE. So your purchase and the consideration is very, very small, right? So your expectation from a tech stack is not that throughput that you would expect it, from a e-commerce standpoint, etc. Which is why if you look at, and it ties back to what I was saying earlier, right? It is largely linked to what your organization goal, your customer cadence, and your throughput expected is.
Got it. Actually, before I move to you, Samir, I think a follow-up question to that is basically, say, while we look at it from an industry perspective, I think what you said defined how an industry drives your decision of picking a tool and the evaluation criteria. Has some of the macro aspects of say, the economy, be it COVID, be it the recent aspects of the economy, have they also played a part in terms of how you evaluate the tools? Is that something that...
So there is no linear or there is no binary answer to that, but I think yes and no, right? When I say yes, I think what COVID did was that it brought forth few quarters of consumption, right? Which meant that you had to be ready with something which you were expecting to happen maybe 4 quarters from now, right? Which means that my choice of the stack that I had existing had pushed me to go back to my drawing board and say, okay, can I handle this kind of cadence, this kind of visits, this kind of conversion, this kind of experience, etc., etc. Did it impact the choice? Of course, yes, right? But did it impact the commercials of the choice? Maybe, maybe not, right? Because if you bring in that throughput from the consumption standpoint, and if your tech stack enables you to manage that kind of throughput, then you are okay. But if it requires you to go back to the drawing board and sort of rewrite that stack and say, you know what, I'm going to look at this demand, which I was not expecting to receive, then of course you have to sort of relook at the entire thing. And as he rightly said, it ties up backward to your enterprise architecture, to your creative teams, to your people at large. It is not a static entity in nature.
Understood. Thank you so much for actually elaborating on that. And I think we'll come back to the initial question, which was more around, specific to your business. How do you go about evaluating an engagement tech stack? So that's something which if you can elaborate on that, if you can share your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, and I think the challenges that you're trying to solve for are very specific to the business that you're in. For instance, when I was in Make My Trip, the one core objective was personalization. Right? Okay. You wanted to get your communication personalized to what the user has already exhibited on your platform. And travel planning is an extensive, high involvement cycle, right? So if you're planning travel to a particular destination, you will have multiple touch points where you leave, your tits and bits of information and your intent, which we have to leverage as an organization, and then make the next communication more, engaging for the user, and hence personalization was the core. In an e-commerce setup, you have to manage the complexity of multiple categories and SKUs and the largeness of the amount of traffic that's coming on your platform. For MaxLife specifically, we are a web-focused system, right? App is not our core platform.
Right.
And within web, most of our journeys start with capturing the phone number of the user. And hence, being able to reach the customer through SMS and WhatsApp becomes very critical and core to us. Also, we are not a information website, so the user will not visit us 10 times in a month, right? And that's not even an objective that we have. And hence, we have to get that communication right. It cannot be very in the face sales communication, but it has to be something which engages the user and helps him move one step forward in his purchase journey. So yeah, so given these facets, we would, if we are evaluating a tool, we will go with a tool which matches the strengths to what we are trying to do, which is core to us.
Got it. Karan, your thoughts on the evaluation
Most
of your
the points
Martech
have
stack?
been already spoken, but to add here, I would say being in Airtel Extreme, leading the Airtel Extreme right now, we are a company who started in Feb and saw a growth more than 1 million subscribers, paid subscriber within less than 100 days. So when we were conceptualizing this business, when you are making, you actually don't think you will scale to a particular level. You keep a high aspirations that yes, we'll have 1 million subscribers within less than 100 days. Okay. But then you don't plan for a day like something India versus Pakistan. You never plan for that.
Got
and
it. Feedback taken.
In initial stages of your growth, you encounter such a day when you are regularly sending 1 million of communications via multiple touch points, and
Right.
suddenly on an India-Pakistan day, you are sending billions of communications to the customer. So that whichever Martech you are selecting, it should have a potential. It should have a scalability. It should see. Having a fancy feature in a Martech is a one thing. Then being reliable and how easily it can be incorporated in your existing stack is another thing. That's more important.
Got it.
So being Airtel, we had to onboard a partner which is reliable, which should have that ability of a TPS, managing TPS, that if suddenly India-Pakistan comes up, what will you do? You can't just, the systems can't broke that day.
Right.
You're being OTT, everybody will open up, everybody will start watching it. You need to send a lot of communications around it, score updates, everything. So all those things need to be managed up. And luckily we had good partners with us that made us see good days during those matches. And so that was a good choice, I think.
Good to hear that. And I think, what you're hinting towards is the fact that
Scalability,
scalability is probably more important than one fancy feature or capability. Understood. And I think one thing which would also be important to discuss, in my opinion, would be that, while we are discussing aspects of how do you evaluate an engagement stack or a Martech stack, when we talk about the evolution of the stack in itself, right? Are there trends that you think are going to be important that you currently see are surfacing? There are aspects which you think will become more important when you look at your Martech stack? I think, we can start from you, Karan, because I know that when we're going from Inderpreet, you're probably having same things to say. So we can start from that side. Sameer, you can start, or Manav, you can pitch in if you think that you have
the one big change that we are noticing is adoption of conversational interfaces.
Got it.
And we are really over-indexing, how do we prep for leveraging this trend and making it mainstream into our engagement strategy, because it's conversational interfaces is not just restricted to WhatsApp, right? It's any platform where you can chat, right? It could be Snapchat, it could be Instagram, it could be Facebook Messenger, it could be Google Messages, it could be a web bot. So, and there are multiple business use cases that you can solve, not just engagement. You can use it for cross-sell, you can use it for upsell, you can use it for servicing. And that's one area that we are focusing a lot of our energy.
Understood. Any brand that you think is doing that very well that comes to your mind?
I can share an example.
Right.
So I booked a flight ticket, I think via Indigo only, and just an hour or 2 hours before the check-in, I realized that I have not taken enough baggage as part of my ticket booking, and I need to get another 5 kg or 8 kg, right? And you know how miserable you can get if you have to do it on the check-in counter, right? You stand in the line, and when your number comes, they'll say, "Yahan nahi, you have to go to that X counter." So to avoid that, I said, okay, let me just see if there's customer service who can help me. So their WhatsApp for Business was working, and I just said hi. Through my phone number, they already figured out what my flight booking was, and they offered me 3 or 4 options. I said I need to add more baggage. Immediately, they gave me a price, and I paid that money through the payment gateway. It took me hardly 30 seconds to do that. So, as a customer, I feel that this brand is more approachable for me. The next time, I'm thinking of having an experience, I'll probably go with a brand which solves most of my issues on the fly.
Well, great example, and kudos to Indigo. I think I've heard Indigo in multiple conversations now. Some of the folks were supposed to come as well. I don't know if you're here or not. But Manav, from your side, any inputs on?
So I think two of the biggest waves that I can really think of, which is going to impact, I think A is the deprecation of the cookie world, right? That how is it that increasingly marketers and platforms have to rely on the first party data, right? Which is also tightly knitted to the second wave, which is the privacy wave, right? That how is it that in the next or in the new world order, for you to know your customer, for you to know your prospects, for you to find a attribution engine at scale, how does multi-touch attribution will play a role, especially when you don't know where the guy is coming from, right? I think those are the things which are going to impact a lot on your choice of that stack. And beyond just, conversation, I think it'll be a lot more to do with who and what. And that has been the holy grail for any marketer, right?
Right. Got it. I think privacy is a very talked about aspect of marketing at this point of time, right? So, Inder, from your perspective, what are your takes on it? In the sense that, do you think it is in your business? Do you think it will create an impact? And if in case it will, how do you plan to kind of tackle that?
So, just adding to what Manav said, the most crucial part in our case becomes the orchestration, the journey orchestration of customers when they are on your platform, right? So primarily, how do you engage today is either by pull mechanism, as he was recommending. He interacted with the site for the airline, and there is a push element to it, right? Many people respond in a different fashion and different nudges. For us, there are many channels. For example, it could be WhatsApp, it could be SMS, it could be email, it could be on-site, it could be few more. It could be even call center attached to it for few of the use cases. But how do you make your journeys and flows in such a fashion that eventually that customers are tilting towards, let's say, on WhatsApp, and they are going to be more engaging on particular channel and less on others? Today, if you want to push something, we just blast on every channel and say, okay, let's see what happens. That's now past. No more these kind of, theories are playing well, because it's a wastage and very non-optimized way of doing the business, right? So you need to optimize in such a fashion where customers are responding well. Let's say today, if I send some personalized WhatsApp message to someone, I'll send once, twice, thrice. If customer is not responding, not opening, this is now eventually getting non-optimized manner for us, and for customer probably it is getting into slightly intrusive manner, right? Because you are just throwing in and customer is not even engaging at all. So as a marketer, we just need to be cognizant of this fact and keep changing our flows and journeys accordingly and keep optimizing our ops around it. So that's how we build around it. And coming to the privacy, I think eventually if customers are engaging and if you're not being intrusive in nature, I think that itself sorts out a lot of issues.
So you're saying that, if you're aligned to the idea of customer-centricity, to some level, the challenge of privacy, which a customer faces today, automatically gets resolved. Okay.
Add to that how well you communicate the trust, right? Because at the end of the day, there is a lot of trust void between the platform and a prospective or existing customer, right? So how well you communicate it also is a function of, how do you build that and acquire more data.
But how do you do that? Again, probably looking for examples. Say when we talk about building trust when I'm sending a message saying, hey Dhruv, at times I'm thinking, is my data being tracked? Is it being misused? How do I build that trust as a brand?
So I have an example to share. So for instance, you're using Make My Trip as an app, right? And you're an avid traveler, and you travel to certain sectors on a regular basis. In case there is a price drop for a particular sector which you were keen on or you were searching for, and there is a notification which tells you that on particular dates there is a price drop and you will not get this price in the next 6 months or something like that, right? That's a wow experience for me as a customer because you're adding value. You're not just pushing your agenda onto me. You're actually helping me further mine. Then I would be more and more, I would be less apprehensive in sharing more with you as a brand.
But it has to be the value.
Correct. Add to that 2-3 more things, right? I think the biggest pillar of trust is consent, right? The moment you have thrown that out in the open and you have tied it back with saying, hey, you know what, your data is safe with me, should you choose to share it with me, and if you can communicate that experience, you're home.
Got it.
You're home.
I would like to add here. So unless we are adding value to the customer, just like summarizing, adding value to the customer, it's okay if we beforehand tell him that this is something that you will be requiring in the coming time. For example, if some customer comes on Extreme app, we would like to see that what was his past behavior and would like to recommend him those kind of content that he would be consuming at that kind of an hour. If it is a prime time, probably GEC is a better choice. We are somewhere knowing the customer. If she's a female, then GC would be a preferable choice. If it's a young kid, then probably Kahani Ghar Ghar Ki would not be a right choice.
Right.
Getting in more personalized, giving him, I think, what lookalike audience usually consume at that time. That would be a better choice. Understanding the customer, giving him what he would want. Like usually, how evolution has come up. Earlier, we will say that this customer have seen in the XYZ in the past. We should recommend him the similar things. Now we are evolving to the level where we are saying lookalike customers are seeing some such things, and then they tend to see other related stuff. So we should recommend that customer.
Got it. So value.
And unless we are adding the value, it's okay.
Got it. But I think post that also, one thing which Manav said is equally important, which is consent. Because value is to some level still subjective.
Yeah.
Correct. So
taking recommendations when during the onboard journey, that what kind of content you like, that it helps somewhere setting the expectation.
And sometimes we do take the gray route while taking consent. Right?
Has it happened with you?
Yeah, of course. We would either reduce the font of the TNC where the consent is being taken, or make it gray so that the user will skip it, right? So yeah, I mean, great point that Manav made, that if you make it explicit that I am taking your consent, then the chances of heartburn should be significant.
It automatically builds that trust to some level. Got it.